gonna demo the forearm really quick. It's a 2 projection series. So you have your AP and your lateral. It's gonna be a 40-inch SID to the tabletop because we're tabletop, we're not table bucky. Another thing when you're dealing with extremities that are tabletop, you don't need to be in detent. This is something that a lot of new students do. They feel like everything needs to be detented, so they try and detent this to the table, and then they're frustrated because they can't get the part. Remember that you can move the cassette and the tube to your patient, wherever they are. So don't worry about being in detent for this. Make sure your SID is correct. And then the other thing is you want to make sure that the center of your central ray, CR, should be centered to the cassette. So this would be centered this way, and this would be centered this way. You can tell by this and this. You can move this around to your patient. So you can turn the tube to go with it, okay? The other thing that I would say here is that your part needs to be centered. So you need to have part, tube, IR alignment, okay? All 3 need to be aligned or you'll receive points off on your scale. The other thing is if you have any light that is extending past the edge of the cassette, it's a fail. So this would be a fail. If you have the part extending past the cassette, it's a fail. If you have the part on the cassette and the light is also on the cassette, but the whole thing isn't necessarily all aligned, exactly centered, that's not going to be a fail. It's just going to be points off. But if you have anything that's off the cassette, light, etc., that would be a critical error. So we're going to start with the forearm. The forearm is going to be on a 14 by 17. We're going to put the blue towards the elbow because we hang by the fingers. So in this instance, I'm going to have him just go ahead and put your arm out flat. I'm going to move my cassette to him, relax it down. The other thing that we want to keep in mind is that we want the humerus and the forearm to be on the same plane. This is going to be really important when we get to the elbow also. So I'm just going to have him slouch in his seat a little bit just to make sure that his humerus is also, there we go, flush. I should be wearing gloves. Sorry. Pause 1 moment. Alright, so from here, I'm just going to move this here. Note that I already have this lengthwise in one direction. You have a couple of options. You can recalibrate your collimation or you can just turn your tube. So in this instance, I'm going to turn it. Raise up for me 1 second. Come back down. If you could slouch just a little bit more just to get this a little bit more flush against the cassette. Or you can lean forward, that works too. Alright, when you're dealing with long bones, you want to make sure you get the joint above and the joint below. Raise that for me. So now we have that, and I'm going to mark. I don't have a marker on me. I would mark on the lateral side, okay? He is in an AP now. He's not in a PA, so we're going straight into the lateral. You would mark right here, and you would mark so that you can read as because we're going to hang from the fingers. So the marker, if it was an R, the top part of the R would be here, your letters would be here, or your numbers would be here, okay? So from here, I'm going to move into the lateral projection. I'm just going to have him bend his elbow 90 degrees. So go ahead and bend. We're going to pretend this is a DR cassette. I would typically switch out my cassette. And then I'm just going to have him lean this way and slouch so that we're same plane. Raise up for me. Notice that I keep moving the cassette to his body, okay? So as far as where he's turned, this is going to be a problem. We want this to be as flush to the cassette as possible, so he needs to slouch more. Oh, there we go. This is not always comfortable for your patient. Again, it's going to be mid-forearm, both the AP and the lateral. Just going to rotate his hand a little bit more. I'm going to mark here. Again, if this is the left, so this is the left side. So the L would be here and the numbers would be here, okay? The last one was also the left. I was just using a right marker as an example. So another thing that we want to take into consideration is that we want to make sure that we have light past the elbow and past the wrist. Make sure you pay attention to this because if you don't, you could clip. A lot of students, what they'll end up doing is they'll do this number and then they'll collimate in and they don't pay attention. Will you bring the camera over here? They don't pay attention and then now you're clipped back here. This is bad and we don't want this. This would be a fail. Okay, so always make sure that you're centered to the part, but also that you have light extending past. Pay attention to the shadow too. I wouldn't want to put my marker right here because that would get right in the shadow. Also for the forearm, you want to ensure that your patient's elbow is bent 90 degrees. That's because you want to be able to see the 3 concentric arcs.
which is the same thing that you would want to see for the elbow. Whenever you do a lateral forearm, a lateral elbow, and a lateral humerus, you always want to make sure that the elbow is true lat. Also, I want to make sure my wrist is true lateral. Okay? You can relax, thank you. And that's that on the forearm.